OnlyFans has managed to do what many other businesses have failed at. It took a product people were used to accessing for free, adult content, and convinced them to pay for it.
The business model of being naked online was fairly broken. They managed to piece it together to some degree.
In just 4 years, the company's revenue grew more than 2,000%, bringing in $6.6 billion in 2023.
Now, other social media platforms, they're like, ooh, we can do subscriptions too. It's like, yes, but subscriptions is only part of the picture.
There's a lot of people out there just think you just take some sexy pictures in lingerie and you just post it, let the money roll in. And it's so much more complicated than that.
Despite looking like other social media platforms, OnlyFans' underlying business model is different.
It seems like OnlyFans' approach has just been to figure out what the legal line is and then stop several paces short of it.
That's why the platform isn't on major app stores, and the company says it's built a deliberately hard-to-use search function. Now it's capitalizing on a creator economy in flux to build a new type of social media. This is the economics of OnlyFans.
It's definitely been an interesting topic. I feel like I've started to see more and more videos on this topic, but it's definitely an interesting segment. Obviously, it's relatively new, but you see so many references to it in videos, social media, etc. And you can find so many people who have this as like a link somewhere in their social media accounts. It's becoming quite prevalent. So they're definitely doing a good job of their marketing. And so I'm not surprised that they have increased their revenue by so much, because I feel like they came out of nowhere and they've basically become a sort of household name out of the blue. And so they clearly must be doing something right as a business.
One of the things that got me really interested in the business model was just how different from social media it was.
Most social media companies like Facebook and Instagram make their money from advertisers, but OnlyFans makes all of its money directly from its creators, and its creators make money directly from fans.
We only make money when creators make money.
Creators can charge fans up to $50 a month for their content, much of which is explicit, some isn't. The company takes a 20% cut, and creators take the rest, which is more straightforward than other platforms that share a percentage of ad revenue once your account meets certain criteria. Now, OnlyFans didn't invent the idea of revenue sharing, but it had timing on its side. Other websites already existed that allowed creators to monetize their content directly from fans. A couple years after OnlyFans' launch in 2016, social platforms like Tumblr restricted adult content. Then, in 2020, things really took off. The platform doesn't have nearly as many users as Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, but there's a big difference. They're on most app stores. OnlyFans isn't.
OnlyFans sort of has to be swimming against the current, and they have to do this because Apple's terms of service do not allow for pornography as a full-time thing.
That was a decision made by us because we were hopeful that we would end up processing a large amount of payment volume.
By not being on the app stores, OnlyFans doesn't pay Apple and Google a 15 to 30% cut on all transactions made on an app.
That's enabled us to keep our 80-20 monetization split, which is fundamental to how we do business.
That's actually pretty smart. So they referenced that pretty quickly, and so I'm not sure how familiar folks are with the app revenue models. So effectively what happens is there's been some debate on Google and Apple basically being monopolies for apps on their app stores. So basically there's a single store that exists pretty much for the iOS or Android platforms. And what ends up happening is that's where most of us get our apps from. But in order for you as a developer or a creator of apps, you need to enter into the app store, and then you need to give up some of the revenue share from that app. And so it's about 15 to 30%, and that's what they have referenced there. I believe it's closer to the 30% for most purposes. I believe there are some discounts if you're a smaller business, etc. But they usually take a pretty hefty chunk of the pie for just being listed on their store, even though they specifically ban other stores from existing. And so I believe there's been some court cases on whether or not that's monopoly behavior or not. And so they have avoided having to pay this fee by not being listed in their store. And it's actually possible to have apps or things that look like apps on your phone that you didn't get from those stores, but it's usually much harder to do. And you might have to go to a particular website to do it. So sometimes there are things like web apps that you can go to a particular site and then you can save like a link or something and make it look and feel like an app, even though it isn't. And then you don't have to go to the store at all. And so it sounds like this is how they're maintaining a good chunk of their revenue is by avoiding that fee, that pay-to-play aspect of the App Store that exists today.
If we had to give 30% of our 20% to somebody else, that may change the economics for us.
OnlyFans has paid its creators $20 billion to date. That's more than quadruple the payouts of Patreon, another creator subscription platform that's been around longer.
We now have 4 million creators, 300 million fans worldwide. Not being on the App Store has not had a negative impact on growth.
As much as OnlyFans is very different from other social media platforms, it is also symbiotic. Where do all the fans for an OnlyFans account come from? And the answer is overwhelmingly other social media platforms. So what OnlyFans is doing is basically outsourcing to content creators the job of recruiting their own.
Yeah, so this is something that I've referenced before. So a lot of people that I've heard of and seen referenced is they usually make another account like a TikTok or an Instagram or something like that. And then they are a content creator on that platform. And then they try to basically funnel people into OnlyFans as their other monetization path in order to get subscribers and increase their revenue. So this is where likely all this marketing has come in, as they just referenced, which is effectively the users and the creators on OnlyFans are effectively doing marketing for that business and for themselves at the same time so that people can find them. And this is likely why this became such a phenomenon, is you have to get big subscriber numbers in order to get people to funnel over, because not every one of your followers on one platform is going to follow you to another one, whether it's an adult platform or not. And so you need a large number in order to have a smaller number on one platform, or that they progress, or even to purchase anything from you for that matter, whether it's a photo or it's a t-shirt or whatever it is. So this does get advertised pretty heavily by the individuals who use it, and then it's also referenced by other people who see it pretty prevalently in those various social media platforms.
Customers.
You've got to do the groundwork. If I'm not making content, I'm on a site messaging, I'm doing all my advertising, the marketing, everything. Like, I might watch half an hour of TV if I'm lucky, and sleep.
In 2021, OnlyFans launched OFTV, a safe-for-work streaming platform, as another marketing tool for its creators. But
in order to monetize on OnlyFans, really you need to have an existing fan base that you're seeking to monetize. It's quite a hard platform to start off from scratch.
That's because the company says algorithm-driven search recommendations don't exist on the platform. Say you want to find creators who post yoga content. It said a simple search for yoga won't get you very far. Instead, you'd have to search the exact username you're looking for to get any results. But it's not.
That's interesting. I wonder if that's intentional or not. Maybe they're going to elaborate on this, but I haven't actually used the platform myself, and so that seems like that would be a necessary feature, I would assume, is some way to help find users that are on there. Not just because you would still want subscribers. So, like, if you're a creator here, you likely would still benefit from having another social media platform and then finding specific people who are interested in you as an individual and as a potential creator to move over to this platform. But it seems like it would be inherently beneficial for content creators and for the platform itself to help facilitate that. Like YouTube, for instance, you can search, and maybe something you searched helped you find this video or one of my other videos, or will help you find some other content creator that you might never have heard of because you're maybe looking for something particularly niche. Like, I know this happens all the time when maybe you're looking for a particular recipe or looking to do some DIY project or home repair or car repair. You likely aren't one of those individuals who's constantly looking at all of those topics all the time. You just want to get help this one time, find that video from somebody who's an expert, and then get what you need and then get out. And so it seems like that would be beneficial here. They have highlighted this search functionality before. I'm curious if this is something that is intentional, but I don't know how this would be beneficial to a platform inherently.
Quite that simple. We tried searching for yoga and got a lot of results suggesting different creators. And OnlyFans does have a homepage promoting different creators' content and a suggested account section, which the company says are the most popular accounts at the time and aren't personalized based on users' previously viewed content or personal data. Still, the company relies on other social media platforms to bring users in.
It would not be possible for them to have succeeded to the scale they had if creators hadn't been able to sort of harness virality in social media, even as that was something that OnlyFans itself rejected for its own platform.
So one of the other things they mentioned was not just search, but also the recommendations weren't personalized. So while they're highlighting this search functionality, it's possible that what they're really highlighting is the fact that maybe the site just doesn't have that much technical rigor behind it. Maybe they focused all their technical effort into scaling and availability and payments, for instance, which is totally reasonable for a business. They seem to keep going to about 2019, I believe, was on some of those previous charts. So they might have only been around for 4 or 5 years at this point. So it's not outrageous for a company who's really just getting off the ground to be experts in recommendation engines or search engine functionality. And so that might just be a limitation of how advanced they are technically in their platform and their systems. And those are things that usually you need to specialize in or have experts in to do those things really well. Those don't just come for free right out the gate. So that might just be what they're highlighting, is that they're a new platform, they're a new business. Not everything is perfect, so it might not be intentional on their part.
There are moments, for some reason, you'll have like a dip and then you'll question everything. And then, like, you know, I have content go viral again on Instagram. I'll be like, oh, maybe I am actually good at this.
As the platform has continued to develop, we added the ability to tip, to have pay-per-view messaging, to have paid direct messaging, to have paid live streams, paid voice notes, basically a million different ways to consume and to pay for content.
Today, OnlyFans actually makes more money.
Just want to pause here for the chart to take a look at it. So one-off transactions are about 60% of the revenue. So that's interesting, which does make sense. Generally speaking, while as a company you prefer subscription revenue because it is more consistent, this is the exact reason why customers don't like it, is because they will sometimes subscribe for a service and then not get the value out of it, and then keep paying for months before they realize and cancel it, or maybe even longer. That's exactly why companies like that type of revenue model, but customers usually try to avoid it. So it does seem to make sense that people would just want to minimize the number of transactions they have overall. And also, if there isn't good search functionality or other things, it does make sense that somebody maybe is coming for a particular content creator. Maybe they just want a single piece of content from them, and maybe that satisfies their needs. It's unclear. Maybe they'll discuss this right now, whether a lot of these one-off transactions are repeat customers, or if these are customers who just use the platform one time and then that's it for them.
From those one-off purchases than it does from subscriptions.
And you can see how much it was, how many people viewed it, and how many purchased.
I think microtransactions are a sign of a deepening relationship. People pay good money for this stuff, whereas like, how many people have paid for cat videos?
And there's a lot of people that go on there just they want someone to talk to. You know, they want that kind of like online girlfriend sort of like experience, or they want to like sort of chat about something that's gone on in their life or their day.
The company doesn't put a number on the average creator's earnings.
There are people who earn eye-wateringly large sums, there are people who earn a little bit, and there are people who are in between.
Even now, I've hit 1 million on there. I've come from being a secondary school teacher, being at the food bank, and that's why like I just don't take anything for granted. I always think you don't know what's around the corner, you don't know if you can have everything one moment and then.
So they just highlighted the disparity in income for some of these creators. That makes sense to me. This is pretty prevalent as a concept throughout any social media platform or any other type of content creation. Is usually the very top like 1%, or even if you take it for work or other careers like athletes, for instance, it's like the top 0.1 of the top 0.1 that makes tens of millions of dollars a year. But then if you're the top 1%, like you might just be making 50K like everybody else. And so this is a pretty common trend that exists in a variety of fashions. So it does make sense that that would also be true here, where at least from my understanding, from what I've heard from other videos on this topic, is that most individuals don't really make that much money, if anything at all, like I would say YouTube, for instance. And so likely most people are probably making nothing, or maybe even less than like $100. Then obviously you have these individuals like this individual here, who is maybe making $1 million or more. And the same thing can be said about TikTok or Instagram or YouTube for that matter.
Have it all taken away from you.
Making sure creators get paid, no matter how much, has been a challenge for the business. Back in 2021, it was apparently so difficult for OnlyFans to work with banks that its CEO at the time banned adult content. That decision was reversed just days later.
2021. So obviously it was before my time, and the company had grown exponentially over a very short period of time. I don't think there was a great level of understanding in the market about the sophistication of the controls that were in place at OnlyFans. And I think people frankly got a little spooked just by how big the company was and the amount of revenue being generated.
As for another ban,
We're definitely not banning adult content. No, easy.
financial institutions can deem accounts associated with sex work as high risk and deny service or raise fees, partially due to the risk of platforming child abuse.
Absolutely, there is risk associated with some of those businesses, but there's often the same risk associated with general social media platforms as there are with OnlyFans.
Payment processors typically take a 1 to 3% cut of each transaction, but high-risk accounts can be charged more than 10% in fees. And payment processors say that's because adult merchants come with reputational risks, rampant fraud, and higher levels of customers disputing credit card purchases. So OnlyFans works with a combination of providers, which it says is to ensure global coverage.
This is my nerdy lawyer nature coming out, which is what matters is not the headline risk, it's the unmitigated risk that matters.
OnlyFans says it's now able to work with institutions that haven't traditionally worked with the adult industry because it's proven to them they've mitigated risk through safety controls.
Is there more work to do? Absolutely. Do some banks and financial services institutions still have an outdated risk model that they follow? Absolutely. In some cases, is that just a moral judgment call? Absolutely.
OnlyFans requires creators to submit more than 9 forms of ID to prove they're above 18 before they can post content. But it's a lot easier to create an account as a viewer. It took me just a couple minutes to set up a new account with an email address. Once I entered a payment,
9 forms of ID is actually quite a few. That does seem pretty thorough, generally speaking, for content creators. Also, as we're going through this video, I think something else that is interesting to think about is, I believe also gambling has become a lot more prevalent as well as socially more acceptable, and curious if there is any trend where some of these, as they said, riskier businesses and I would say alternative business formats that have generally been frowned upon in the past do seem to be kicking up in the last few years. I wonder if that is potentially COVID related, or maybe if there's some societal shift that's occurring right now. But we've definitely seen, like sports gambling, for instance, and gambling on your phone. This has become a much more prevalent aspect and is actually impacting a large portion of the population base at this point in time, at least in America. And so it's also curious that at a similar timing, give or take, that OnlyFans was able to pick up, but also OnlyFans could be picking up its pace due to social media prevalence. Though I'm curious as to how a platform like this kind of started since 2019, when we already had other social media platforms before this. So maybe something is going on that is actually enabling these businesses to become more readily available. Maybe they're not as frowned upon in the past. Curious if any of you have thoughts. Please feel free to share it in the comments.
method, I was prompted to scan my face using a program by Yoti in order to verify I'm over 18. And within seconds, I was able to subscribe to explicit accounts without providing any further forms of identification. OnlyFans says every piece of content is reviewed by a combination of automated and human checks designed to block certain words and non-consensual images. But the system isn't perfect. The company's UK regulator is investigating whether its face scanning system has done enough to prevent under 18s from accessing pornography. OnlyFans said fan verification varies depending on location, and that in all jurisdictions, they require fans to register with a valid payment card, confirm they're above 18, and accept the terms of service.
Keely talks a very good game in terms of why there is a moral case for running the company the way that OnlyFans does. There's another reason that I think is a little more unspoken, which is that if you are directly taking a cut of money that is going toward pornography, you better be damn sure that money is going toward legal content and that the whole thing is exceedingly well lit and non-abusive.
Today, OnlyFans is pitching itself as one of the most lucrative choices for all types of creators across the $250 billion creator economy. recruiting athletes, comedians, and adult entertainers alike.
I do want to see more content creators from all verticals join the platform, but I want OnlyFans to be recognized as the incredible business success story that it is.
They really sort of have, to some degree, treated this as a business rather than as something dirty, and it doesn't really seem like anybody else is stealing it away from them.
If you want to hear more from OnlyFans CEO Keely Blair, click the link in the description for our extended interview.
Now, a lot of other social media platforms will say adult content is against their terms of service, but their platforms are full of adult content.
Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, please hit like or subscribe. I'll see you around.